camera out of hell. Come on. Dearie me. Oh, Scott. Anyway, back to these two boats in Montrose. Oh, God knows what time of night. It was winter nights because it was about 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock at night. Round about then. It was a lot of years ago, I can't remember, but it was dark. Obviously the main piers in Montrose were all lit up, but anyway. So we did as we were meant to do. We got the skipper. We could only do one boat. There was two boats landing. You can only concentrate on one boat. So we picked on this. We just went, right, him. And got the skipper. Hi, skipper. Could you stop the landing and give me your logbook? Fuck off, was the reply. And of course we asked again, nicely of course. Fuck off, you can fuck off. I'll hand my fucking logbook in when I get to Aberdeen. No, we need it now. Stop landing and we need your logbook now. We're going to monitor you. F off was the reply again, like so. Alright, well, we'll just count the boxes of fish and identify the species as it comes out the boat. Well, I tell lies, there was 3 fishery officers. Just remember the other guy was there. Because he went in the back of the lorry first to identify the species of fish that was in the boxes. That he was getting pushed about. Just generally abused in the back of this lorry by these Fraserburgh fishermen. And of course said, right, get out of there. This is no use. You just have to come out here, like, on the pier with us. So there's the 3 of us, 4 of us, standing on the pier, and there's the next thing, the crew starts launching lumps of ice at us. There's about 4 of them in the back of the truck. We're throwing ice at us, so we're trying to dodge that. The occasional fish got thrown at us. And like the inspector guy, he goes, Kevin, because I was the biggest, get up there and tell that skipper we're wanting the log sheet right now and he's to stop the landing. I was thinking, well, we've already tried that and we've got to tell where to go, like. So anyway, I went up, skipper, blah, 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 blah. So this guy, the crew in the back of the lorry decided to swing this, like a long metal hook that the trail boxes with, a trail hook. He swung that at my head like he was trying to hit a home run for their baseball team. I was going to say LA Dodgers, but that's probably a basketball. It doesn't matter. So he swung this hook, missed me by like millimetre. I felt the wind passing my face, like, must be what injured. It just been horrendous injury he'd hit me. So I went. That was me. Like I was ready for action, sort of thing. And then he spat at me. I mean, it wasn't just like, it was like, you know that. And I went, you bastard! I said, fucking get out that lorry now, down here now, me and you, sort of thing. And of course, my inspector was. Right, Kevin, right, calm down. We'll hit a phone the police. This is no use. So anyway, the police were called. The skipper stood at the back of the lorry while the doors opened and announced that if he ever saw me in Fraserburgh, I was dead. If I ever see you in Fraserburgh, you're dead. Of course, my reply was, if I ever fucking see you in Arbroath, you're fucking dead, you bastard, like. Sorry for that swear, but quotes here. And so, this went on. The police arrived, got the skipper to come out of the lorry, and of course, I was with my inspector, and he goes, right, Kevin, you issue him with a detention notice. This means that the boat's detained in port until our investigations are completed. So, until we've seen the paperwork, until we've counted the fish, identified the species, etc. So this skipper going, oh, you could fuck off, and the copper's going, now, just let the man do his job. And I'm thinking, no, what side are you on? You should be a bit more authoritative than just now. But anyway, that was it. And so I went, served me with this detention notice. You're detained in the port of Montrose until blah, blah, blah. And handed it to him, which he then crumpled into a ball and threw in my face. Now, again, okay, a ball of paper, that was assault, and the copper did absolutely nothing. So that was, we were just up against it. So we got ahead of the lorry drivers. That was our next protocol. Get the lorry drivers, inform them that they're not to move the lorry until we've been in the back of it and got a count and identified what's in there. Aye, said this lorry driver. Right, so remember now, once this landing's finished, do not move. We need in the back of this lorry. Aye, I'll not move. Right. Of course, the last box went in. The crew jumps out, quickly slam the door. The skipper's up at the cab. Go. And because I'm standing there, and I'm going, oi, looking up at this, I mean, it's a big Arctic, like, looking up at this guy in his cab. Hey man, we tell you, we need to look in the back of it. Oh, I have to get the water Fraserburgh for the market, and I can't stop. So anyway, here's a copper. Right, so we didn't have, as fishery officers, we didn't have the powers to, like, stop a vehicle. We could request it, but we couldn't enforce it. But the police could. We're now in Forfar, by the way. Yeah, the police could enforce it, obviously. So the same copper, was standing there watching on, it was going on. I went up to him, and the lorry was just like pulling away dead slow. So I goes to him, could you ask that driver to stop? I says, because we need to get in the back of it. I said, I've already told him, he's already agreed that he would let us in the back, but obviously, I says, so if you ask him to stop, he'll stop. Or you tell him to stop. Or we're just here to prevent a breach of the peace. I was like, you fucking useless prick. So anyway, I mean, the lorries were seen to, and for us, they were by the staff there. Probably Peterhead staff as well, but just an absolute nightmare. And of course, when our big boss heard about it the next morning, he went absolutely nuts. I mean, he was right on the phone to the chief inspector or whatever, Angus, like the guy in Forfar here. It was his officers that came to our rescue, not. And he was right on to him. There was meetings with the police and everything. I reckon it was sorted out. Did I want to charge the guy with assault? No, I didn't want to charge him with assault. It was just part of the job, unfortunately. Like I say, no particularly good memory, but I mean, you grew up quickly in the job in situations like that. A lot of folk couldn't handle it. It's too stressful for them. I mean, these guys and the companies, the agents that were buying the fish, or agents for the fishing boats, I mean, it was said at the time, and I quite believe it, that they were better organised than the mafia. Because, like, it was this morning, I went on to Aberdeen Market, and one of the boat's agents, I mean, an agent for one of the biggest blackers of fish, fishing at Aberdeen, and anyway, he went on the market on this morning, and he comes up to me and he goes, Gavin, come here. I went, aye. And he pulls out his book, his notebook in his pocket. He says, you left the office at 5:03 or 17:03 last night. You were heading home to your house in Port Letham, if you're a stead. You stopped at this garage, blah blah blah, at this time. And then you went straight home. You arrived home at such a time, at this address, and you never left the house again that night until you came to work this morning. Now that was the level of sort of scrutiny we were under. I mean, we thought we were great, sort of sneaking about, trying to catch fishermen landing blackfish. And these guys were following us home and sitting outside our houses while they were landing blackfish, obviously. They wouldn't have wasted their time doing that if there was no black landings going on. So if they had a boat coming in that night to either Aberdeen, Stonehaven, Montrose, wherever, and they wanted to make sure that the Aberdeen fishery officers weren't out and about, that's what happened. You were followed, you were watched, until they had gotten away with their black landing. One of the biggest culprit in Aberdeen at the time, I got into the skipper every morning, and I went, because I had run-ins with him, There's a time we caught him in Stonehaven, and well, we didn't catch him because he got away. But anyway, he was landing blackfish at the end of the pier, at the entrance to Stonehaven Harbour, into the back of this lorry. Now, Stonehaven Harbour, one vehicle can get down, and that's it, and one vehicle can get up. So, we were obviously seen coming into Stonehaven, and the lorry, you could see the lorry making its way up the pier. Well, we couldn't get down the pier to the boat, that's what we wanted. We couldn't get down the pier to the boat because he was coming up this very narrow road in the pier. So we let him past, bombed down to the boat, and he never even untied his ropes, he just snapped them. Just put the boat into gear and belted out the harbour, ropes pinging. And thought, right, Christ, right, we'll have to get the lorry now, because we'd missed that. But as we were coming out up this like narrow road and even narrower entrance into Stoney Harbour, a car was parked right across the road, I mean, intensely blocking us, and the fishery officer I was with at the time, he knew her or them, two females in the car, was the skipper's wife and daughter. So I'm at the driver's seat, screaming and shouting at her to move, and she's just sitting there looking at me on the phone, and obviously on the phone to her husband, aye, we've got them, the lorry will get away now. So we decided that we were gonna, he came into Stonehaven Harbour and he was heading south. So we thought, right, if he's got more blackfish to land, he's maybe getting to land at Montrose. So we had to try and get down onto the coast, the Stoney, so we could see the boat. And every little, I mean, it was like a rally driver, was hammering it to try and see if we could see him, like. And these wee country roads and handbrake turns, that's an exaggeration, but anyway. But his wife, like, she matched me. She had a faster car for a start, so, but yeah, she just was never off my tail. And I'm looking in the rear view mirror and I could see the daughter on the phone, so they were relaying everything back to him. So sometimes it was fun. I mean, you get a wee tip off, and then you're having to try and cover your ass so you're not spotted, because I always had folk watching. So it was just a cat and mouse game. And if you caught them, yes, good. That was it. You'd won. Then you had to deal with whoever the skipper was and crew when you did catch them. Some guys just had their hands up and go, alright, there's my log sheet, my hand was on it. Other guys would go nuts. Probably had enough of me yakking. He says, as he's trying to think of another story. plenty, believe me. It's just stories that you could actually tell. I started the job in Shetland, and I mean, it was at the height of the pelagic Klondike times, like masses of Russian factory ships would arrive in the harbour of Lerwick. At one point we had just over 100, that was the most we'd ever had. And I mean, they were anchored, I mean, a couple hundred yards from the office to, I think the harbour limits were 4 or 5 miles, so they could have been 4 or 5 miles out to sea. And the seas around Shetland are a pretty inhospitable place at the best of times. And our method of getting out to see a Klondiker, a Russian skipper, was by a little rib. Well, no little. Somewhat a decent size. And usually single outboard. They did this crowd that was contracted to us. They did hit a twin engine, twin outboard. It was a beast, like, you know. I mean, when they first got it, it was so powerful, it was lifting the nose right up, and it was in danger of flipping it backwards. So they had the centre console, they found out after a few runs, had to come out of commission. Centre console that you sat on, the guy driving it and you as a passenger, that had to get shifted forward. I think probably more ballast in the bows, like, but yeah, it was a powerful thing. But still, in a storm, after a storm, when the seas were still, I mean, big swell, and for 10 to 20 feet swell. It wasn't nice bouncing out off the top of the waves on a day like that. Yeah, and of course when you got out there, to get to the captain's cabin, you had to make your way along the main decks and through the innards of the accommodation area of the thingy. And of course the captain's usually in the wheelhouse, and that's right at the top. I mean, some of these ships were very, very big, like, so it was a good climb. Right, sorry, I'm just we're now entering the village of Friokheim. Aye, so you had to, to get to the skipper was an adventure in itself. I mean, you were usually climbing up the stern ramp on a homemade rope ladder. And then some of these ships had dogs on it. Usually, well, the inside came across, it was always Alsatians, like kind of ferociously, like they were going to have you. They were tied up usually, but scary dogs. And then you'd get to the captain's cabin, and the fun would begin. So you'd introduce yourself. You were usually there to issue him with a licence, or to revoke his licence because he was leaving. That was... I don't know what the hell's going on here. Yeah, so you would tell them what you were there for. Most of them spoke a wee bit English. Some of them were good. I started taking Russian. I was studying Russian evening classes in Bray, where I stayed, and I'll learn a bit of Russian. I mean, that breaks the ice, and I'll maybe never be fluent. I wish I was. I just love the Russian language. I could listen to it for, even though I don't understand it. I could just sit and listen to them speaking. Anyway, I learned my wee introductions, stuff like that. So I would get in and try out my Russian on a captain in his ships, and of course he must have thought, well, this guy could speak Russian, and he'd say something in Russian to me in reply, and I would shrug my shoulders. I'm sorry, I didn't understand. I'm learning Russian. And there's one skipper started giving me Russian language lessons in the whalehouse, like. Of course, which I didn't understand. He was getting too fast, but he was picking up things and going, like maybe pick up a pen. This, he'd pick up something else, and spasibo. Anyway, a lot of the times, especially when they arrived, these Russian ships arrived, they were looking to get a licence so they could take either herring or mackerel at the time. So they were nice to you, and they were usually nice anyway. And it would be, would you like a coffee? And if it was a winter's day during the mackerel season, and you were frozen by the time you got there, I mean, that was a good idea. So you go, oh yeah, thank you. So they get the coffee on, and it was like, they'd take a coffee jug, and they'd pour about half a jar of Nescafe in, or whatever they had. It was just like, nah, this would be a bit too strong, and nah. But you drank it anyway. Because you quickly learned, depending on how you were feeling at the time, you quickly learned after the coffee came the vodka. Because you were sitting there chatting, you'd finish your coffee, and next thing he's offering you vodka. And you're going to yourself, I wonder if it real Russian vodka, no Smirnoff shit, real Russian vodka, I wonder what that tastes like. So, can you get aye? And of course, every Russian that I know, they skippers anyway, captains, the vodka's kept in the freezer, so when it doesn't freeze, obviously it's just like a kind of thicker liquid. But so into the freezer, here comes the bottle, and wee shot glasses, pours it out, and the customary set of cheers, it's Nostrovia, so then they knock it back in a winner, so you sort of go, well, I'll just knock it back in a winner as well, so boom, back it goes. And I think I've told this story before, so I'm not going to tell it again, but on one occasion I ended up in an absolute mess. After about 3.5 bottles of vodka, between 3 of us, no, 4 of us, there was the skipper, the captain, this guy had the technologue, the second in command, who was gay. I've told this story before, but never mind. Who was gay. So they 3 and me, and like my boss that was with me at the time, no, he was no. No. And he refused every drink, and as a matter of fact, they poured him a drink every time, and he just slid it across the table to me. So I was drinking his and mine, double the quota, and like I say, I ended up in a hell of a mess. As in, very drunk. But that was the only time. There was other times, I would say, because I knew guys that would, after they finished, well, they would get home, just say they were on a day shift, because when the Russians were there, we worked day shift, back shift, night shift. So after, especially if you're on a day shift, so this particular guy would finish, go home, get his tea, back down the harbour, get ahead of sea taxis who took us out to the Russians. Then he was all dressed up, and he'd go out and party on these Klondikers. Well, I knew a couple of guys that did that actually. But yeah, so some guys took it a bit too far. I mean, I had a couple of friends, Russian guys, who supplied me with, black bin bags full of fags, 200 cartons of fags. We were getting them for, at the time, they were charging, Joe Public, they were charging them £5 for a carton, like 200 fags. And these things, they're called Hollywood was the brand, and they were like Benson Hedges, very mild, a good smoke, in the soft packets. But this guy, because he was a fishery officer, etc., but he wasn't a captain, he wasn't the officers or anything, he was just like a decky, and he worked on the thingy. And he said, for you, £3.50. And you what, £3.50 for 200 fags? How much have you got? How much do you need? Well, because they're a black bag, fill that up like. And yeah, so they were good. I mean, they could get you as much vodka as you wanted. What they couldn't get you was brandy. I think that was the reserve of the captains. And believe me, I've had Russian brandy on these ships, and it's nectar, like, it's beautiful. But I couldn't get ahead of a bottle of it. I mean, I had bought quite a few bottles. I mean, I wasn't an alky or anything like that, but just a hay in reserve sort of thing. I mean, this brandy was so good, but I could never get it. You could get guns, like real guns. Obviously, you didn't buy guns. full sets of ping golf clubs in the bag, brand new, were 200 quid at the time. But you had to catch these Russians before they came to Shetland. Most of them had been in Canada for whatever fishing season, mackerel or herring. Well, I don't know what they were taking in Canada, but they'd come from Canada straight across to Shetland, and of course they'd picked up all these. Well, I don't know how it was so cheap. I can't remember what a full set of ping clubs and bag set of were in the shop. I mean, it was a lot of money at the time, but yeah, you could get. Let's say you could get anything. As we pass quickly through St Vidgeons. Yeah, there was one guy who was with once, and he said, I'm needing Russian dolls, the Matushkas, they get weird inside, for folk when I get back home. He was up in detached duty in Shetland. He became like one of the big bosses eventually. By the time he was a senior fishery officer, and I am needing maybe some vodka and the Russian hats for my wife, like the big furry jobs like the Russian women wear. I went, right, I've got a guy. I says, he'll be able to get you anything you want. So we headed out to the Klondike that he was on. We were out there anyway, we just stopped off at his. And of course, went to his cabin and this guy goes, or said his name there. This guy said, yeah, could I get blah blah blah, blah, I'm needing this. And no. So he disappears, and of course, as we're sitting there, all these guys are poking their head in the door and offering us, because they knew we were there to buy stuff, and they had like brand new engineering tools that probably cost a lot of money, and wanting pennies for them, relatively speaking. And so he got everything he wanted, and he was happy. And then this final guy came in with his swag. You want to buy? You would buy. So he had various things, and it was like, no. And he had this like shoulder holster, kind of like you wear like, under your clothes, sort of thing. And the guy, the fishing officer that was with, goes, oh, jokingly, do you have the gun as well? Da, you want gun? No, fuck's sake. No, we didn't want a gun, like. But, yeah. So that's it. They all lived happily ever after. The end. Let's be back.